Folks, today has been an extremely strenuous day. We have been on the go nonstop all day long, preparing for tomorrow. We've got two major moves taking place at the same time tomorrow. We are two men in one truck. We're really three men in one truck, and we got to be at two places at the exact same time. We will be vlogging that experience, and I cannot wait to be able to bring that to you. I will have nightmares and probably a very sleepless night in anticipation of that. But folks, the fact that we have been working extremely hard lately has nothing to do with what I want to share with you guys today. And in fact, what I want to talk with you guys about is what you better never do up inside that courtroom. And in fact, I would be lying if I told you that old Joe didn't do something one time that, I should have never done up inside of the courtroom, and I would live to pay the price for that. I'll share that with you guys in this video as well. When you think about being locked up, not always are things gonna go according to plan. There's an old saying while you're serving time as well that goes something along the lines of hope for the best, but prepare for the worst. And a perfect example of that is definitely going up inside of the courtroom and things just not working out. And folks, today we're gonna talk about that in particular and how, I guess that kind of leads to things you better never do up inside the courtroom. But then again, when things don't really work out inside of the courtroom, people sometimes can't help but to be filled with emotion and be ready, willing, and wanting to react. And it's with all of that being mentioned that what do you say we go ahead and we dive That was Joe the poker dealer right there. Head first up into this fresh new haircut and into this video. There's a reason why I wanted to do this video about the things that you're best to never do up inside of the courtroom. And the reason for that is because I just ran across this really crazy story that of course took place down in Florida involving a Florida man and something that he did up inside of the courtroom that, oh my God, you're best to never do. But this guy was already facing never going home anyway, so he didn't really have anything to lose. But my God, when y'all hear what this man did, and we're gonna be getting to that in just a little bit. But when you think about things that you're best to never do going up inside of the courtroom, there's some pretty basic things that come to mind. Don't go in there and try to make the judge mad. If you go up into the courtroom and say the wrong thing and make the judge mad and another dude has to go in behind you and he finds out that you made the judge mad, because sometimes the judge might just tell him like, so what's this dude doing up in the courtroom? Because that last guy that came up in here, that last guy though, I don't even know what you in here for, but you're going to prison. Jaywalking, 5 years. Don't let somebody have to go up to bat behind you, meaning they're going into the courtroom after you. And you done got the damn judge ejected from the game, he got so mad. They're gonna take it out on the next man. And it's kind of like a little prisoner convict etiquette. You don't go up into the courtroom and make the judge mad, but sometimes you can't even help it when the judge tells you something crazy. And folks, I've had the judge tell me something crazy. I'll never forget it. I'll never forget it. I was going to court for what would amount to be the 7 years that I served. My last time in prison. And during this time, I was still in general district court, meaning that my case had not got certified up to the big leagues, meaning circuit court. And in general district court, that's when they're trying to see if they've got enough evidence to convict you, and most of the times they do. It's not very often that they don't, and they just go ahead and throw the case out. Most of the time, they've got enough evidence, and even if they don't, they're gonna say they do. You can go try to beat it up in high court. But it was during this time when they tried to sentence me on a driving charge. Like my 16th driving without a license charge. The judge sentenced me to 1 year. I was already facing football numbers for the charges that I had. But my lawyer came over and whispered to me, we can appeal this and take this upstairs. And the judge heard my lawyer say that. Folks, I hadn't even said anything at this point. I didn't say a word. The judge looked slam at me and said, and I dare you to appeal this, boy. I swear. Came over the little partition like he was Foghorn Leghorn or something. I swear, I dare you to appeal this. All that time you facing already going upstairs. The judge, he made me mad. I ain't like what he had to say. So, old pistol starter Joe, little young whippersnapper, thug life for life. I was 26 at this point. I wasn't all that young. I had to go hard in the paint. Judge, you done made me mad. I got to let you know I'm mad. I went ahead and I snatched the microphone off the podium. I didn't even mean to. But I was kind of just trying to do a hand gesture forget this. But I used the expletive instead. Expletive? I used the curse word and said, man, forget this. YouTube. forget this. I hit the microphone, knocked that off, and I started walking and escorting myself out of the courtroom. I got shackles on my feet. It's funny, they take the handcuffs off of you when you go in the courtroom, but they don't take the shackles off. Not in the city of Suffolk, at least, they didn't do that. So the judge looked over at me as I'm walking myself out of the courtroom, and he said, "What did you say, boy?" I said, boy, what did you say? I said, "Forget this." Judge looked at me and said, "That's a contempt of court. That's 30 days. I ain't like what he had to say right there neither. So I said, "And you know what, Judge? Forget you too." Stuck them fingers up right like that at the judge. We're on YouTube. I can't even stick the fingers up. Judge said, "That's another contempt of court. That's another 30 days. Oh, wow, you just gave me 60 days. You already told me I'm facing football numbers. What do I care?" I went back into the bullpen. The guards attempted to beat me up, but I copped the plea. Hey, I don't want a problem. I was just doing it out there in the courtroom. I wanted to look like I go hard. I feel sorry for the next guy that walked up into that courtroom after me, facing something like not using a turn signal. That guy probably got life. It's traffic court. It's not going to be in the same court. But it was the first thing that came to mind, and it was kind of funny. Yeah, it's something that you best never do up inside the courtroom. Don't go up in there making the judge mad. But, you know, sometimes you can't help it. Those emotions, they're raw. You're facing a lot of time. You get a lot of time. I've seen dudes who have tried to fight up in the courtroom. Well, I've seen it more on TV. I know I've heard stories about dudes wigging out in the courtroom. Now, I have seen a dude get 2 life sentences and not react at all. You give me 2 life sentences? Oh boy, I'm gonna try to Superman that bro up in the courtroom like Soldier Boy. 2 life sentences though? Oh, you got to get some of this. You don't want to act the fool up in the courtroom neither. And you know, if you're coming in from the streets, like meaning that you're not locked up, but you're facing some jail time, dress appropriately when you go up in that courtroom. Don't go up in there under the influence. I've heard of and seen many an individual go into the courtroom super twisted, just knowing they getting locked up. Trying to stand up at the podium and talk to the judge any type of coherently. Yeah, Judge, whoo. Can't open my eyes, Judge. I can't, I'm not trying to see this time. I'm not even trying to see this time. 20 years! As much as it might pain you to not go off inside of the courtroom, it's really not a good thing to do. And you know, another thing that you're best to never do, and this is because everybody knows about this, but don't ever go up in there and try the old insanity plea. And what I mean by this is, you know, some people might catch like really crazy charges. They did some very bad things like, you know, hurt people, kill people, whatever. And they're going to go in there and they're going to try to plead insanity. You know, there's this old prison rumor or old prison myth, an urban legend, that, you know, if you go up into the courtroom with some peanut butter slid between your little bun buns and you start playing with that peanut butter and wiping it all over your face and such, the judge is going to think you crazy. And I am sure at some point in time, I would like to, if anybody can find a story about this where this actually worked, I would love to hear about it. But I can guarantee you, this story wasn't just spun up out of thin air. This probably really happened. And can you imagine this actually working? And what the judge's reaction to that probably was? Son, you are putting dookie all over your face. You are crazy. You're crazy. I feel for you, son. I don't care if you're facing triple homicide. Boy, you crazy. We're going to send you to the mental asylum for a couple of years instead of prison. Oh, dookie though. Dookie. Why does that smell like peanut butter? You know, there's a lot of things that you better never go up into the courtroom and do. I can tell you another thing. In fact, that's, boy, when I think about this one though, shorty, you almost got my boots smoked. This old ratchet ass good for nothing chick that I was dealing with in the past. I wasn't no good, she wasn't no good. You know, I wish her well at this point, but my God, don't you never do this. If you got a loved one or supposed loved one who's going to court, don't you never come up into that courtroom under the influence. This happened to me one time, and I was facing drug charges too, like, God bless. You couldn't have been no more dumb. But I walked up into that courtroom. I had gotten this sweet plea deal. I didn't tell on nobody. They were giving me time served. It was my first time offender status for drugs, a little slap on the wrist, boom. And in this city, you know, your public defenders, they all want to be the next Jose Baez. So they go to bat for you. And this public defender did that. He got me this sweet-ass plea deal. I only had to tell on like 4. He got me this sweet-ass plea deal, and I go up into the courtroom. And they start reading off the charges, and the prosecution is reading the case. And they're like, you know, we've agreed that we want to give this individual time served. We want to give Mr. Guerrero Time served. And the judge looked at the prosecutor and said, you want to do what? What? Why they do that at? Unbeknownst to me, at the time, my girlfriend at the time, she was in the courtroom. So when I walked up into the courtroom, I'm nervous. But I see her. And she doesn't really acknowledge me, but that's okay. I see her. So I get my swagger back. So at first I'm walking into the courtroom like, God, I hope they take this. And then I see the girl, I'm like, God, I hope hey, yeah, you know. I get my little prison convict strut going on, walking over to the defense table. I was scared shitless. When the judge said after the prosecution, laid out what they wanted to do, the judge was like, what? And I was like, what? This is gonna be that one time when they don't go along with the plea deal. But again, unbeknownst to me, there were some things that happened prior to me going up into the courtroom, and these are some things you're best to never do, but they happened to me. Little did I know, this girl, she must have been out there being promiscuous all the time. But she came up into the courtroom, she blacked out twice, she had to be resuscitated the second time, and she would tell me when I got released, because thank God I did get released, and before I even got released, the judge would ask me, he would say, sir, is that your girlfriend right there? I said, yes, sir, that is. He says, do you know that girl has done passed out in my courtroom twice and had to be resuscitated? I looked back at the girl and I looked at the judge and I said, oh, sir, I thought you was talking about the other. That ain't my girlfriend. I'm lying, I didn't do that, but damn, that was funny. So the judge already thought that the chick was on drugs. The judge thought that I was some kind of an El Chapo or something, but he still agreed with it. Could have gone horribly wrong for me. Thank God it didn't. The girl would end up telling me after I got released that she had been out all night with her sister doing the fire pow pow, and that was the reason. She just didn't get no sleep and she hadn't eaten anything. And then she told me, she was like, she tried to justify it like she's the victim. I could have died, right? I could have died. Should have thought about that when you were sticking that half a chicken up your nose. Definitely weren't thinking about it then, though. But again, folks, there's a lot of things that you ought not do when you go up into the courtroom. And I'm not going to sit here and dissect all of them. But I do want to know what you guys think are things that you shouldn't do up inside of the courtroom. And with me asking you that, I want to share with you a story that I just ran across in the news involving this Florida man who was facing a boatload of time. He's facing 2 boats now. And some crazy stuff that he did up inside of the courtroom, folks, that you best to never do. Folks, go ahead and take a look at this living legend right here. This Florida man, whose name is Albert Narvaez. I know I butchered that, but it is what it is. Albert Narvaez, 28 years old, awaiting sentencing on an attempted murder charge. So folks, just from that right there, we already know that this man is facing a lot of time. He doesn't have much to lose. He's not really concerned with or thinking about what you ought not do up inside of the courtroom. And we also don't know the backstory that would lead to what this individual would do. So who's to actually say who's right or who's wrong in this situation? But old Albert Narvaez, awaiting sentencing on this pretty severe charge, would end up going into the courtroom and somehow throw urine on the prosecuting attorney. Now, the first thing that comes to mind is like, where in the world did he get this from? Because we know without knowing that he didn't have time to whip out in the courtroom, fill up a bottle, and then pull over. No. You'd have never had time to pull off that before you're getting football tackled up inside of the courtroom. So what we do know without knowing is that somehow this man was able to fill up a bottle or a milk jug and then smuggle this up inside of the courtroom. Folks, this was a premeditated act that Albert pulled off right here. And you may be asking yourself this as well, like, how would he be able to smuggle this up inside of the courtroom? Don't you get searched prior to going into the courtroom? And I don't know how they do it in every single state. I can tell you how they do it in Virginia, which may be something like how they do it down there in Florida. But, here in the state of Virginia, when you're going to court, they search you right before they shackle you up, and then they handcuff you, and then they transport you to the bullpen where you await going into the courtroom. And sometimes you could spend hours in that bullpen. So long, in fact, that you get served your little bag lunch with your sweat meat sandwich and your 1 mayonnaise and also that little milk jug full of either milk or some kind of juice. So I'm guessing that it was while Albert was waiting back in the bullpen that's when he filled up this milk jug. He probably already had some kind of a feeling of anger toward this prosecutor for whatever reason, because he was probably about to get his boots smoked. This guy had made him mad somehow. He probably had an axe to grind with old Albert. Albert knew it. He knew it was over for him, so he wanted to make sure that he got the last laugh. Folks, I don't know a better way to do it than making national headlines for being the guy that walked up into the courtroom and threw urine all over the prosecutor. Maybe, let's not be so harsh on Albert just yet. Maybe he was trying to provide the prosecutor with a urinalysis. Here, da! Now, unfortunately for this prosecutor, I feel bad for him, I truly do. When this would happen, it wouldn't miss him. It wouldn't hit him on the arm. Ooh, you just peed on my arm. No, folks, it would be a direct. He would hit the bullseye. I don't know any other way to put it. Not only would this urine get all over the prosecutor, it would even get in his mouth. I feel bad for that prosecutor right there. I don't know this guy personally. I don't think anybody ever deserves to have the old urine, the old pee-pee thrown on him. I don't think anybody really deserves that. But then again, when you're a guy who's facing a lot of time, you don't care. You're not going to get enough time to leap over the table. But what you did right there, Albert, may possibly be the worst possible thing that you could ever do. And when you go to sentencing, oh my God, this dude is already facing new charges because of this. They say he is now facing a battery charge for this attack, which is pretty much like an assault. It's a violent charge right there. They also say in the story that, when he did this, he was heard screaming, "He told me to do it." Now, I don't know if he's referring, and Albert said this, "He told me to do it!" Yeah, I don't know what he was referring to right there. Maybe he was really trying to drive home the fact that he was testifying against somebody. Look, yes, you got me for this, but somebody else told me to do it, hence the attempted murder. Or, if he was actually going for the insanity plea, he told me to do it, meaning the voices inside of his head, pull over. Obviously, as you can imagine, the courts are outraged by this situation. They are going to absolutely crucify this dude up inside of the courtroom. And I ask all of you, what do you think actually happened that would make this guy so mad that he would, want to take out a stink bomb on the prosecuting attorney? Because essentially, that's like a watered down version of a stink bomb. Folks, we ought to do a how-to tutorial video on how to make a prison stink bomb, which basically just involves the fecal matter, the pee-pee, up in a milk jug, maybe a little bit of milk in there as well. You let that ferment for about a week, and folks, you have got you absolute tear gas and biohazard chemical warfare right there up inside of that milk jug. Yeah, we ought to do a video about the old prison stink bomb. How bad does it really smell? But again, what do you guys think led to this guy doing this? What do you think the prosecutor did, if he did anything at all? Or do you think that the guy was really going for the insanity plea? He said he told me to do it prior to the all over the prosecutor. What do you honestly think he meant by that? Regardless, that's about the worst thing, one of the worst things you could ever do up inside of the courtroom. Something that you're best to never do. So let's all take a moment and learn from what Albert did. Completely uncalled for. And he's definitely going to get what he deserves when they make an example out of him up inside them Florida courtrooms. Hey, look, that's it. I hope you guys enjoyed this video, and if you did so, please leave a like and a comment letting me know exactly what you thought about this. And as always, until next time, enjoy life, the free world. Never take a moment for granted, and make the most of every day. Peace!